The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the speakers and guest. They do not represent the views of our sponsors or any entities they represent. Enjoy the Big A Talk Show.
What's going on, people? I'm your host, Big A, and this is the Big A Talk Show. Let's get it.
What's going on, friends? We are calling this episode Video Games and the Obesity of American Children. Now, I really enjoy the whole coming of age with technology, all right? I enjoy the fact that people have monitors that can monitor their health. I enjoy the fact that we have very entertaining streaming systems. TVs, back in my day, I used to have the TV, the floor model TV with a pair of pliers to change the channel. The antenna had a couple of aluminum foil balls at the top of it, right? We used that because we thought it would increase reception. But the truth is, technology has advanced, and in some ways, in a great way. I think of this device that I'm using now, this computer, these microphones. Most of us have a $1,000+ device in our pocket that most of us probably use about 10% of it, right? But it is a mass computing device. These iPhones, these Android phones, they are really pocket-held computers. But I want to talk about video games and why video gaming, the whole industry, is kind of an important topic for me. And in the title, you'll see it'll say video games and the obesity of the American child. So let's start with this. There was a study done, and this is by NIH.gov. You can go ahead and research the article as well. But I took a small snippet of what they're saying here. And it talked about brain function. So although I'm going to talk about video games and the video game industry just a little bit, it is really about our children, all right? There's two sides to it. There's the inactivity as well as the brain function. Let's start with the brain function, right? This is what they say. Functional MRI brain imaging analysis. So they put the kid up underneath some imaging device, an MRI device. If you've seen it in the movies or you've actually had an MRI, you know that this device can map, or it's like an image of the internal organs of the human, right? In this MRI, it was done for the brain. So the imaging analysis found that children who played video games for about 3 or more hours per day, they showed a higher brain activity in regions of the brain associated with attention and memory than kids who never played games at all. So here you are as a parent, you like, yeah, my kid getting smart playing these video games. It said it. The study said it. The study said, hey, they have higher brain activity in the regions associated with attention and memory. Now, that's kind of contrary to what I believe a lot of parents may say, that they can't get their kids' attention away from these video games. They ask them to do something, and they act as though they done forgot what to do because they're focused on playing these video games. Now, for me, the way I feel is the video game industry, it's beautiful. If you've never seen some of these gaming consoles and the graphics that they include in the games and the interactivity that is associated with the game, it's a really beautiful concept that has been created by the developers of these video games. It takes a lot of work, y'all, to put together some of these games. And I remember watching an intro to one of these video games, and I was like, wow, that was like a mini movie. It's really detailed, it's really interactive, and it can be fun, all right? But when I think about kids and I think about their brain activity, I believe that it has created a generation of children who are, and I'll use a big number, 50 to 60% less active than our kids in the past. All right? But let's stay on the brain for a minute. So there was another study, and this was done by kidshealth.org. You can go and check the article. And what they say is too much video game playing may cause problems. It is hard to get enough active play and exercise if you're always inside playing video games. And without enough exercise, kids can. And I know you've seen it. There's a lot of gelatinous kids out there. Kids can become overweight. Now, overdoing video games could also lead to other important stuff, like they're not getting the type of friendship that comes, and how well kids do in school is also affected because their focus is not on the school work. So let's talk about that for a minute. In this study, they talk about how, always being inside playing video games. Now, I remember, again, I'm not going to age myself, but I do remember my first video game system. It was the Atari. I mean, Atari was the bomb. Man, listen, we used to play Pac-Man, Space Invaders. I mean, if y'all played the Atari system, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It was a great video system, but in my neighborhood, and this could have been because of the financial constraints, being raised in a single-parent household, everybody didn't have an Atari system. So me and my friends, if we went to somebody's house, yeah, we would play Atari, but we weren't consumed with it. We were outside. We were playing games like Kick the Can. Y'all remember Kick the Can? Red Rover, send Big A over, right? There was Red Rover. There was Johnny on the Pony. I could remember playing hours. And this was from a very early age. I'm talking single digits, maybe 9, all the way through high school. I can remember playing hours upon hours of handball. Now, I grew up in Brooklyn, inner city, and handball was super big. But there were other games that kept us running, right? It wasn't, signing up for soccer camp or things like that. We used to play stickball in the street, hours upon hours of playing stickball in the street. Another game we used to play, you'd have to be native New York to really know this game. It was called Coca-Livio. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And basically in the game, you would run, you would chase somebody, and if you caught them, you would have to say the words out quickly. Coca-Livio, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, no breakaway. And then that person was frozen. And you was able to take them, I guess it was almost like freeze tag, but we used to take them to quote-unquote jail, right? And then another player, if they was quick enough, could jump around and then free everybody. And the whole point of the game was to capture everybody. And then it was the next team's turn to run out there and see how long you could stay out. What I'm getting to is I remember in my youth wanting to be outside, right? But now let's fast forward a little bit. I'm a parent. I'm a parent in the age of instant news, right? And instant news, and I could be speaking for myself, but I do believe there are other parents who are going to feel the same way, kind of scares you. Instant news and kids getting snatched and all the violence in the street. I mean, there are times when I'm like, I don't want my kids being out there. Y'all remember the time, again, not to overage myself, but do you remember the time where you just go out and you ride your bike, and maybe you ride your bike for a couple of miles and then you come back, and they were pay phones, and if you did check in, you had to stop at a pay phone. I wonder what my mother was thinking then. Was she as concerned as parents are today with the safety of their children? And it is rightfully so. The world as we know it is different, and it's changed. So I think a lot of parents out there should be concerned about the welfare and the whereabouts, as I call it, as their children. But I want to be honest, back in the day, it wasn't as much, right? So lastly, just in regards to video gaming, I want to talk about the child's development. So again, video games, the video gaming industry, I mean, it's nice, it's interactive, but I do see a lot of kids who are less physically active than they should be. And this, I believe, is going to lead to future problems as they get into high school, as they get into college. The inactivity of the young body creates health conditions such as diabetes, health conditions such as esteem and image issues, right? All these things compounded can affect our child's development. And in today's world, there's a lot of things that I would say is a component to this But video games, whether it's on the iPad, whether it's on their phone, whether it's on their PS3 or their Xbox, video games have isolated a lot of our children indoors, and that is creating the inactivity that I'm speaking of. But then there's also the developmental side, the brain side of it. I mean, I grew up where if you played a sport, you were in an activity. If that activity was going to be judged, you were judged, and the best person was recognized. We call it the first place, second place, and third place trophy. Well, nowadays, and I know a lot of you know this, they call it the participation trophy. And I do understand the educators and the people who put this forward, trying to ensure that our children understand fair play and that everyone gets a chance to be involved. We know that, I don't know, coming in last can affect somebody's overall self-esteem, their self-imagery. It can affect them mentally. So I do understand how parents say, participation is important for our children. But our children are becoming inactive, directly tied to overuse of video game and what we call screen time. So there was another study, and this was done by educationaladvancement.org, and it said that video games can also have a negative effect on a child's development. Now, this is very particular as it's related to aspects of violence, antisocial behavior, and increased aggressive thoughts and feelings. Because video games, if you've ever played them, they are so interactive. I mean, it's compelling you to feel something. So when you're in there and you're shooting or you're jumping and you're sword playing and you're slashing people, this imagery over and over again is entwined inside of the child's mind. So now when they're in an actual social environment, do they know how to correctly socialize? Are we using video games and desocializing our children because they're not outside, they're not learning how to achieve, they're not learning what skills they have, they're not learning what I call social placement? And this was important in the development, especially early on, of most of us before the coming of the video game revolution, where we had to, I want to use a word like earn our stripes, right? We had to earn the fact that we got chosen, right? We had to earn the fact that we were good at something, but we also had to earn our social interaction with others. This is what I believe is happening with the video game industry and the obesity of our American children. They're not out playing kickball. You remember kickball? How fun. And kickball was a gender neutral game in which boys, girls, we all played it. We went out in the schoolyard and we was playing kickball for hours. It was a lot of fun. Now I go to parks and I might see some teenagers shooting hoops, but basically they're old guys like me out there doing one-on-ones, shooting some hoops. But where's all the kids? I'm not talking about the babies now, because the babies out there, they're on the swings, they sliding, they having fun. But where are the kids? Just playing. The next time you're out, go to a park. Look around. Look for kids playing wiffle ball. Look for kids. We used to play this game called taps where you had to keep your legs up in the air and we would pass the ball to one another. That game was physically intense, right? Where are the kids playing? I guarantee you, if you go to these parks and you look around and you're looking for the kids playing, yeah, there's a few skate parks where they're on their skateboards. That is one of the major activities I see kids doing. In the bike parks, right? You might find those crowded. But I bet you'll find a lot more of our youth are inside. And if you ask them if they had a choice, what's the first thing they'd want to do? They want to go in there and play video games. So if you're a parent, like I'm a parent, if you're a young person and you have influence over other young people and you find yourself playing video games, I want you to do a 50-50. All right? It's very simple, and especially for you parents. If your kid is inside and they play 2 hours worth of video games, I don't care if it's a day, a week, take that time and now say, you know what, 50-50. You were upstairs, you was playing on that game for 2 hours, come outside right now. Get interactive with your kid. Show them what kick the can was all about, right? Play hopscotch with your daughters, or maybe shoot hoops with your son. Go get a wiffle ball and a wiffle bat. Equate the time. So if there's inactivity, equate the time with activity. And I believe by us doing this and by us being focused on it, we're going to see more and more of our kids more active. They're going to be more socially active, and they're going to understand that there's more to life than just the virtual reality of a video game. Video games and American kids, obesity in America.